Welcome back to Washington Watch. I'm Tony Perkins, your host, and the website is tonyperkins.com. All right, Turkey's growing anti-Semitism is driving Turkish Jews out of their homeland. Turkey's distaste for religious freedom extends to Christians as well, as you look back on the wrongful imprisonment of Andrew Brunson. But yesterday we were talking about how they've been targeting Yazidis in northern Iraq. Well, joining me now to talk about this escalating situation is Dr. Aykan Erdemier. He is the senior director of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, the Turkey program, and a former member of the Turkish Parliament who's actually testified before the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom about Turkey's religious hostility. Dr. Erdemir, thank you so much for joining us here on Washington Watch.
Thank you, Tony. It's a great pleasure to join you.
All right, tell us what's going on in Turkey. I saw your tweet regarding this rising anti-Semitism. What's happening?
So the broader context is, for the last 18 years, Turkey has been ruled by an Islamist government. And this has had a major effect on Turkey's religious freedoms as well as on Turkey's religious and ethnic minorities. Just to give you the numbers, in Turkey's first ever official census in 1927, there were 81,000 Jews who back then made up 0.6% of this young republic's population. But today, and the republic's population has grown eightfold, the Jews, the population of Turkey's Jews came down to 16,000. Which is only 0.002%. So there is a mass exodus of Turkey's Jews. And when we're talking about Jews, I'm talking about over 2 millennia of history in these lands, from Romaniote Jews to the Sephardic Jews to the Ashkenazi Jews. Turkey has a diverse Jewish community, but sadly, they no longer see a future in Turkey.
So what is driving them out?
First of all, there's state-sanctioned anti-Semitism uttered by the highest-ranking officials in the country, propagated through state-run or pro-government media outlets, and worse, then, of course, turning into a grassroots wave of prejudice and hate. So especially Turkey's younger Jews do not want to live in such an environment of hate, and they do not want to raise their children. They do not want to have families in such a setting, so they're taking off either for North America or for Europe or for Israel.
So, Dr. Erdemir, but their hostility, I'm talking about Turkey, the government, their hostility is not reserved just for Jews alone.
Not at all. In fact, just last week we have heard heartbreaking stories of a Protestant church worker, a pastor who's a Turkish citizen, and the way Turkey pushed him out of Turkey was to deny his spouse residence permit after almost a decade in Turkey. So they are breaking up families to make sure Protestant pastors and missionaries can no longer live and work in Turkey. And before, there was a systematic campaign to push out numerous Protestant missionaries and pastors who were foreign nationals by, again, either denying them visas or refusing to renew their residence and work permits. And this was a systematic policy to basically decimate the community in Turkey.
So, Dr. Erdemir, is the trajectory here, is this escalating in terms of this religious hostility we see in Turkey?
Actually, paradoxically, it's going in two directions. On the one hand, we see these theatrics, what I call theatrics of tolerance. The Turkish government restoring a church or a synagogue, or the Turkish president issuing an Easter or a Passover message. But on the other hand, you see this enormous push to inculcate hate and prejudice through pro-government and government-run channels and media. So I would argue that on the one hand, you have these performances of tolerance, which is mainly geared toward fooling international audiences. But on the other hand, what really happens at the ground level is pushing out, Christians and Jews and Baha'is and other religious minorities from Turkey. And that, of course, is, I think, part and parcel of the overall Islamist, authoritarian, sectarian, majoritarian agenda of the current Turkish government and its strongman, Recep Tayyip Erdogan.
So we see a symbolism of tolerance, but a substance of hostility.
Exactly. Very well put.
Dr. Erdemir, thank you so much for joining us. And let me thank you for your great work on keeping a keen eye on what is happening in Turkey as it pertains to religious freedom. We're grateful for your work.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure joining you.